Right. You ready, Adam?
Yeah, over to you, mate.
Happy days. Jamie, let's move on to your career. I had a look through it today just to kind of refresh myself. First of all, I want to go right to the beginning and talk about the time you had at Norwich to start with. Obviously, being born in Bristol, how did the move to Norwich come about? When did you find out kind of the interest, and what was that kind of like right at the very beginning? Who was the person that kind of instigated that to start with?
I was actually, at the time, I was at Southampton, sort of not signed or anything, but just playing under Southampton. So I used to travel down there on a Friday and play over at weekends. So
yeah,
I used to then still play local football in Bristol. And Norwich seemed to have, for some reason, a massive network over sort of the West Country, Wales. They had their sort of finger on the pulse. And I just got scouted, basically. They had a scout called Eddie Penderville, and the chief scout was Gordon Bennett. And they seemed to just literally, there was players galore going from the West Country up to Norwich. And I just got scouted that way, basically, being at Southampton, just sort of playing and training. I got asked to go up to Norwich. So I used to either go up on a train or get a lift up there from the scout. So I would go up there with Darren Eadie and myself. We were both at Southampton as well. He was from Chippenham, so he was sort of fairly local to me. We both got invited up there. And then there was loads of people from my county, Bristol boys. So it was a wash with a lot of local players that I knew. Right. And then that was sort of it. I started training and playing. I went up there, I think, at 13 or 14.
What was that like at that age?
Yeah, I suppose I would say it was daunting, but I'd already been travelling to Southampton. So I think I was at Southampton from like 11.
Right, okay.
I used to train on a Friday. They had an academy in Bath. And then I used to travel down to Southampton. So my weekends from sort of 11, 12 were always away from home, playing football every weekend. So as much as I say it should have been daunting, it probably wasn't. By the time I went up to Norwich at about 13 or 14, I went on a trial. So it was a Easter holiday. So I went up there for a week. I played 2 games, scored 9 goals. And then basically got sort of invited back. I think we played Crystal Palace first game. And we were 3-1 down. I was sub. I come on for 45 minutes and scored 3. Nice. And then we played Colchester the next day, and I started and scored 6. And then I literally went away back to Bristol after obviously the Easter trial, and my phone, or my dad's family phone, didn't stop. They were like, we've never seen anything sort of like this from a trial, and we'd like you to continue coming. It wasn't like it is now, where you would start to sign forms. You didn't sign forms until 14, schoolboy forms. That kept you for 2 years, and then you had a decision to make of signing from 16, sort of as an apprentice. So I signed. I don't even know if I signed. I just kept going. I basically then used to go up every school holiday, and again, it's not like now where you would train in an academy throughout the week. I still used to play for Bristol and Avon and train back home, play for my local side, and then would go up on holidays. And so it was a weird one, but I suppose I got so used to it. I used to end up, I think 14, 15, I was travelling on a train from Bristol to Norwich, crossing London on an underground. And you look back now, and I'd never let my son do that. It was like a 4.5 hour trip crossing London, and I had a big bag, and you're still at school, and you think you never would do it. But I used to do that, and it was like 6-week holidays. I'd be up there, summer holidays, and just kept playing basically for him. So it was one of them, and there was like Bristol players around and local boys. So as much as how far it was away, it was quite comfortable. Me and Darren used to meet on the train and travel up together. I mean, I couldn't have joined many clubs further from where I was from, but it still felt very local because there was, like I say, a lot of sort of players from my neck of the woods going up there. So it made it a lot easier to sort of settle down.
Well, to be honest, there is that Michael McIntyre joke, isn't there? Where you've got we've got East Anglia, where it's like hello, and then you've got the middle of the country, which is all right, and then it's Bristol, hello. So
yeah, I couldn't have combined. I couldn't have combined two worse accents, to be honest. Going from Bristol to Norwich, I mean, geez, terrible.
So you would have been in and around. Obviously, you were in the Norwich setup when we had and Adam, please don't say anything. The infamous European run, finishing third in the league, etc. You would have been in and around that setup. But your kind of break with Norwich came in the 94-95 season, kind of after the cup side of things, where things were starting to go a little bit kind of downhill from a club perspective from you entering into the team. Can you remember your first appearance and what that kind of process had been like and that feeling on the first day?
Yeah, I mean, the year before, I was sort of in and around the squad with Mike Walker and the European. I was sub against Inter Milan, didn't come on. And then I was 16th man. They used to take a spare player to Bayern Munich. So they were my two first experiences of being in a dressing room.
Wow.
The Inter Milan away was getting changed and sitting on the bench. And then the Bayern Munich one was being in the first team squad, but the one who didn't get changed. So they were my first two experiences, and they were, what would I have been, 17, 18? So I had that experience a little bit. I'd always been pushed up from a youngster playing higher. So I had that little taste. And I think if I would have probably had maybe a better attitude and knuckled down a bit more, I potentially would have probably made my debut that season. I was a bit of a wayward sort of guy and a little bit cheeky, and I just relied on ability probably too much at that sort of stage. So it was the year after that Mike Walker had left the teams, Chris Sutton left, Rolf Fox. So the top sort of players, after we had such a good spell, started to get picked off. Started to get picked off. Robert Chase was getting a lot of abuse, and
yes, he was.
So John Dean took over, and then I started to be in and around the squad a bit more. Sub a few times, didn't come on, and then I come on as a sub, which would have made my first appearance against Everton. And again, sort of quite blurry, I suppose. I was very cheeky and cocky and just expected these things to happen. So I come on at 0-0. I had a chance, and I don't know if Neville Southall saved it, and drew 0-0, and it was like, right, it's about time. So in my head, I would have been saying, it was about time you played me. I've been scoring a million goals in reserve football, and I should be playing. And I always felt that I could offer something, and always felt, I think Mark Robbins was playing ahead of me, and I'd always was that confident I can come in and do a job. And I started to then be more around it, and then I made my full debut against Nottingham Forest away on Sky. So it would have been a Monday night. I think it was Monday night Sky, and I got told in the hotel, and basically was buzzing. Again, about time. Rang all my family, to say, look, I'm going to start. Tried to. I don't know if my mum and dad come, because at the time I found out would have probably been about 3:00. We kicked off obviously like 8:00, and was buzzing. Just couldn't wait to play. I think we lost 1-0. I think Lars Bohinen scored. I just remember coming up against Stuart Pearce. And I'm fragile sort of kid anyway. I'm not that big. And back then I was like nothing. And just remember him shielding the ball and just the pure sort of size of these players and the physicality of them. And like the no nonsense back then. Back then the centre half or fullback could kick crap out of you. And I just remember that sort of looking around and thinking, okay, right, I've got to,
welcome to the
be a bit more about it. Yeah, exactly.
Was that like a reality check in a way then, from like the success and everything that you were getting before you were able to make that step up? All of a sudden, facing those players, did it really hit home?
I think a little bit, yeah. I mean, I played in reserve, so back then the reserve teams, you had filtered down players who coming back from injury. So you played against a lot of sort of players that had played a lot of football, but it was reserved, so they were half sort of just getting themselves back to fitness to go back into the first team. But once I stepped into that arena, it then become properly real. The fans, the expectations, if you don't do something that they want, there's a lot more moaning. The expectations of first team players, that was probably the biggest shock to me. It was senior players would literally rip your head off. If you weren't doing your job, and that was sort of a bit of the shock, because I'd been around them for so much, knew them very well, socialised with them, I had banter, but I'd never obviously played with them. They were different characters. Once you were crossing that line and 90 minutes, didn't get paid loads, but there was good win bonuses. So that meant a lot to people. And, you suddenly realise that these people are nice off the pitch, but on the pitch, it's their livelihood, their jobs. And it was a case of, this isn't just fun. And that's how I sort of treated it as a kid. I was used to just playing on the streets, going into them playing normal football. Everything was fun, and I loved football and scored goals. And I never had that of playing for a specific reason. Sort of youth team reserves, which you were playing to get in a first team. All of a sudden you were in a first team. We're now playing for our livelihoods. There's a manager's job on the line. There's 3 points. There's relegations. There's money. Everything. And I sort of, when I first went into it, probably was still quite jovial about it. Didn't take it as serious as what they were. I went into a team that was full of experienced players. So that was probably the biggest shock. And then you're playing against another team that have got the exact same idea, and they're not going to let you take their 3 points or take their win bonus. And it was getting used to that, and then a fan base that were around, and the manager that's going to go nuts at you. And that was the biggest thing, of stepping into that first team world of, this now means everything to everyone. It's not just a game now. You miss a chance or you don't do this. This means everything to everyone. So I think that was the biggest sort of, not shock, but the biggest eye opener to me of, right, this is now sort of life or death sort of stuff.
But then a month after your debut, if I got this correct, you scored your first goal. Was it against Chelsea? Would that have been right? Describe that if you can. What would that
it's
moment
probably the
have been
weirdest. Like? It's the weirdest, maybe first goal ever, because I was sub at the time. We were 2-0 up, and we had a corner, and I got sent on for Mark Robbins, and I literally just ran into the box and headed it in.
So like 15 seconds or something like that, wasn't it?
It was 13 seconds. At the time, it was a record, and I think it was only beaten by Sean Gota against Man United and Man City derby. I think he got 10. So it still would be in the top 3 or 4. But again, you had no sort of nothing to think about. You see now a sub coming on, they get given a tactics board, and just, you're going on, there's a corner. So I just literally ran from the dugout straight into the 6-yard box and headed the ball in. And then it was like I just ran off celebrating like I would, but it meant more because I knew that was right. This is my first goal. It's out the way. I've had an impact from coming on. And it's sort of jubilation sort of thing, I suppose. But to think about it, I had no time, which I think was probably the best thing. I hadn't been in the game at all. It was case just ran on the pitch, and I said in an interview, the ball just literally dropped on my head, and I nodded it in. So it was a sort of different sort of way to announce yourself and get your first goal.
Yeah, because then for the rest of that season, from a club perspective, it was a nightmare. But from yours, getting into the team, you then start chipping in with goals against Man City, against Ipswich, etc. What was that kind of experience like? Because obviously, from your perspective, you're finally getting into the team, you're developing, you're scoring goals, etc. But the team as a whole is performing well.
Yeah, we were struggling, and again, being a youngster, I didn't take much notice to it. I don't think I really paid attention to the trouble we were in. I was enjoying being involved a lot more. I was starting more games, scoring goals. So I was looking at it thinking, well, I'm doing my job and this is great. And I didn't really take it in that we were starting to then slip down the table. And it was probably the worst thing that happened to me, because I broke in and I think I'd made 27 appearances and started 9 games. I think I'd scored 4. So for me, I was 19 at the time, that was like brilliant. Premier League, lovely. And then in the end, we end up going down. Manager changes. I then didn't break in solely in the first team the following year. And then in my career then, I didn't get back to the Premier League. And you sort of look and think, is that a massive turning point that if we would have stayed up, there's another year in the Premier League, if you score a few more goals, do you then suddenly career move on? Do you get a move? And because you're still only young. So yeah, that was sort of a massive sort of turning point, I think. And yeah, at the time, I wasn't like focused on like I would be now. When I become a senior, you're focusing on right, this can't happen. Where I would have just been doing what I felt I should be doing and not worrying about what's going on with the team, so to speak. So yeah, it didn't really hit home until probably turning up in the summer, and you're suddenly like not a Premier League team. More players have gone, and it's now while we're in the Championship or League One, it was probably called it then. So yeah, at the time it wasn't. I'd never thought it would happen. I think we beat Ipswich 3-0. We went 11th, and I didn't. You think, oh, we're fine, and then I don't think I hardly won a game. I remember being involved and going away to Newcastle, getting beat, and I think Arsenal got stuffed, and I remember us going to a lot of games, and I can't remember too many where we should have won. I think we got a few draws. I think West Ham and stuff, but I don't know if we ever sort of really went on a run where we kept ourselves out of trouble. It was a really bad run.
After the Ipswich game, we lost 7 in a row.
There you go. And I'd have been in and around most of them. So yeah. So for me, as starting out, it's the worst thing. Getting relegated. I mean, I was linked with Middlesbrough at the time, and they were coming up. And I was linked with them. There was £1 million or something, and it got sort of kiboshed. And again, being a young kid, I didn't ever pursue it. I had no agent. I didn't go to the club. And again, you sort of look back and think, well, would that have been something I should have pushed to? That was a club move in the opposite direction.
Well, the following season, obviously, we had a mass sales going on again when we dropped down into the first division. I suppose from your perspective, were you thinking this is going to be my opportunity in a lower division to be constantly playing week in, week out? I've now got an opportunity to go, right, I've got a whole season to prove what I'm capable of here, rather than being potentially another maybe squad player at Middlesbrough if you did make that move.
Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't have gone away and thought that, but in my head, that would have been definitely when I come back for the following season, after being involved so much in the Premier League, I would have expected I'll start the season and I'll be a regular starter. But again, for whatever reason, like I say, I wasn't the greatest pro, and I expected things to happen more than me go out and make them happen as a young player. That was my attitude quite a lot. It was, I know what I can do. My ability speaks for itself. I'll always score goals. You just got to play me. So I didn't tend to put in the hard sort of yards and be overly professional in my young period, my first sort of period as a player. It was all like more expectation. I deserve to play. You should be playing me, rather than being a super sort of pro. I mean, I'm more of a pro now than I was back then. So that was probably, when I look back, would probably be the reasons why I didn't play a lot longer at Norwich in my first period, and I probably didn't play higher in that early stage, which I knew I had the capabilities to do. And that's probably one of the things I look back on, and I suppose I don't regret, because that was me as a character, but I wish I knew what I was like. I wish I knew now, back then, what you needed to do. And you can't just rely on, I'm a good player and that's enough. And I think that's why from that point, my Norwich career basically near enough ended, because the following year I left. So I think, that would be all down to me, not my ability or anything. That would be down to me as a professional.
Sorry, John. It's a bit of an awkward question around it, but how long do you think it mentally took you to recover from that whole thing of being relegated, and maybe not then suddenly realising that you're not just going to go into the team based on your sort of proven ability alone? Did it take you a while mentally to get over that and to actually almost push yourself to be re-established again as a player?
Yeah, I think once I left was a big sort of wake-up call. Because I would have assumed the following year in the Championship I would have played all the time. I think I only scored 2 goals. I think I scored against Ipswich and scored against West Brom.
Good man.
So for me, I'm thinking, well, I scored 4 the year before in the Premier League. I should be a better player than that in the Championship, and obviously I wasn't. So they were my own failings, definitely, of me expecting to play because of what I'd done as a youth team player, what I felt my ability was. You should pick me, rather than listening to advice, rather than thinking, right, what do I need to do to get in? Not, what I've got already should get me in. So I think that season was a bit of a washout, really. And then I obviously the following year went on loan to Bristol Rovers and then left. And again, what I probably should have done is I went on loan to Rovers, scored 5 in 6. I should have come back, and gone, right. I've gone and showed you what I can do. I know what I can do. Come back, and then maybe have another crack. I only had a year left at Norwich anyway, but maybe gone back and seen, can I get myself back in the team? But I left and went to Rovers, and I slowly then in the next 4 years basically built up, I think, my career and started to make a name for myself in the 4 years there, which really I could have done that. For me, with the ability I had, I could have done that at Norwich, like not a problem. But it was a case of, me getting my head right and establishing myself, which I obviously went and done that somewhere else, really. But there was no reason why I shouldn't have done that for Norwich.
Was there any other offers at the time when you did go to Bristol Rovers? Were there any other clubs maybe in higher divisions that were going to take a punt on you, or was it, the offer to go home, so to speak, and play around that kind of area? Was that an opportunity that you just kind of couldn't turn down at the time?
I mean, when I went there, they'd already agreed a fee, so they were quite clever. So they basically spoke to I think Mark Walker was come back, and it was his decision. Yeah. So they basically said they want me on loan. If the loan goes well, we'll buy him for 250 grand. So they'd already agreed it. So it was a bit like Football Manager, really. They'd already got the agreement done, and I didn't know at the time.
Really?
So I went there and played for the month, and it wasn't until I was there that, as it was going along, Ian Holloway had said, "Look, we've agreed a fee. So no matter how well you do, whatever, if you don't do well, you go back. If you score like I did, they can't ask for no more money." So me scoring 5 in 6, Norwich would have probably turned around on any other day if there's no agreement to say, well, he's worth $500,000. I was only 21. So they'd already agreed it. So for Rovers, 250 grand for a 21-year-old who's just scored 5 in 6, was easy for them. But it was then my decision. I could have gone, no, I don't want to join. But I think because that had happened and it happened so quick, I don't think it gave anyone a chance to even know I was available. I suppose when you go on loan at a young age, it's just to go on loan to come back to your club. So I think if I would have then gone back and not got in Norwich's first team, then I might have had maybe other options because people would have seen what I'd have done. But it was done. I felt that it was probably the best thing to do. I'd got quite comfortable at Norwich, was enjoying my sort of lifestyle, and I just probably felt, it was probably the best thing to do was come out. Bristol was easy. Everyone I know is from there, so it was a choice. Is it going to be better for me to go there or worse? Because I was going from my second home in Norwich, where I knew everyone, had a lot of friends, going to my first home. Was that going to have an even? Was it going to have an even bigger effect of going back to my old life, old friends?
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a gamble because I knew what I was like as a character, and not being a great professional and having loads of time on your hands, going back home and having all of that time, but with everyone around. So it was a difficult one, but I'd enjoyed my time. I'd started scoring goals, and in my head I thought, right, I'll sign, I'll get 20 goals this season and I'll be gone. And I was there for nearly 5 years.
Well, you like you said, you did have you scored 11 in the first season, 13 in the next, 25 in the next, and 22 in the other. So you really had started to get your career was back on track. And then you were so close with Bristol Rovers to getting in the playoffs, weren't you? And then the move to Reading happened. Was there? I mean, obviously, I don't know the full ins and outs of that particular season when you did miss out on the playoffs. But was there not a part of you that like, right, we can have another crack at this, or did you just think, right, I've done my 4 years here, I need to move on for my career?
Yeah, it was sort of that. I mean, a few other players left as well, and I knew that they wanted to go. So I think Jason Roberts, my strike partner, left. Andy Tilson, who was the captain at the time, left. So I looked at it, and like I say, we'd had 4 years. We'd lost in the playoff semi-finals once. and that was a year or 2 years before, which I missed out on. I broke my leg in the last game and missed out. We lost to Northampton. We were 3-1 up, went to their place, lost 3-0. So we missed out on that. Then the following year we were okay. Then that last year we were top of the table with 10 games to go. And we basically finished one place outside the playoffs on 82 points.
Wow.
So we in 10 games we won 1. And I think if we'd have got 7 points, I think we'd have finished second. And I think we got 3.
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah. And we played on the last game of the season Cardiff, who'd already been relegated away and just needed a point, and we lost. And we'd have finished in the playoffs. So we went from top to, it would have been 8th in 10 games. And the only team we beat was Bristol City, which everyone was happy with. But we drew, we lost. I mean, we lost key players and didn't replace them, and lack of form and all sorts. But yeah, we were top. I think in the end, Preston, trying to think who went up. But yeah, we should have gone up. We should have gone up automatically. You know, I think out of 10 games, 9 points would have done it. Something like that. Something ridiculous. And we got 3 points and maybe a few draws. And like I say, we finished outside of it. So the season sort of finished and everyone was disappointed and gutted. And I just thought, you know, maybe I'd won the Golden Boot and then I'd scored 20 odd again. And I just felt that I'd nearly played every game of the last 2 or 3 seasons. And I knew people were going, so I knew our squad was going to be weaker. And I just thought I'd maybe done enough to maybe think, right, you know, let's have a new challenge, you know, going into my 5th season. And that was that. I spoke to Ian Holloway, sort of expressed to him, didn't hand a transfer request in, just spoke to him. I think Jason spoke to him as well. And then literally the next day in the paper, we were ousted as Jason and Jamie handing transfer requests, demand to leave. And we were like, hey, what's going on here? And we'd only had the conversation. And then pre-season, me and Jason got left behind on a pre-season tour.
Wow.
We had to train. We had to train on our own.
Jason time, then, really.
Yeah, you sort of, you know, Ollie had sort of gone, look, if you don't want to be here, then I'll work with the squad I've got, which we thought was fair enough. So we're both sort of training on our own for a week. Then the squad come back and we go back to training with them and, you know, trying to stay fit. Jason got his move to West Brom for, I think, 2 million. And I was still there. And, you know, there was rumours and options, not options, but there was rumours that stuff was going on. My agent was speaking to me. Hibs apparently had bid 500 grand. And then that had fallen through. And then I end up still being there. Season starts and I end up starting the first game of the season. So we played Bournemouth. I got booed obviously throughout the game because everyone had, you know, this saga was going on throughout the summer. You know, I'd been sort of made, and I was demanding to leave and whatever. I still hadn't handed a transfer request in at any point, but you know what clubs are like. They try to put it all on you.
You're tarnished with that brush. It's difficult to shake it off unless you come out with a statement yourself, isn't it? Really? Yeah,
exactly. So you know, I went through. We drew with Bournemouth 1-1. I managed to score, which was quite nice. And then I had a phone call about Reading that week. I went to meet them. I went to meet Alan Pardew at the Medeski Stadium. And basically, they agreed a fee with Rovers. I agreed a deal with Reading, and that was that. And I signed for them, and I played in the League Cup the week after. I didn't play on the Saturday game. I missed the Saturday's game. And then I played in the League Cup on a Tuesday night against Leyton Orient.
And you had 2 very successful seasons with them, 3 successful seasons with them, obviously getting promoted as well. Was that probably the most successful time in your career, would you say? The happiest? I
think on a long scale, definitely. I mean, I went there that season, scored 30 goals for them. We got to the playoff final and lost, which was the best day and worst day of my life. We lost to Walsall 3-2. But as a season, it was sort of my most productive. I scored the one for Rovers, so I scored 31 in the year. And that was sort of coming off the back of scoring to 29 the 2 years before, and then 24. So I suddenly started to say, right, I can score 20 plus goals a season. So that was obviously for me was good.
Yeah.
But we obviously fell short and lost. And then the following season we got promoted. I managed to score the goal against Brentford, which secured promotion. And then the year after in the Championship, we got to this playoff semi-final. So in a 3-year period of my career, they're probably the most successful because we were always challenging.
Yeah.
Whatever was going on, whatever league we were in, we had a chance of achieving promotion. So, and I was a big part in all 3 years, I suppose. So yeah, it was my most successful, and probably for a long sustained period, most enjoyable. I mean, I enjoyed all my time at Rovers. The 4 years I was there, you know, you have disappointments every year, but I enjoyed my time. But yeah, for success and what I was doing personally and as a team, then that's the best 3 years, definitely.
So from there and that success, like,
why did you decide to leave?
There's also the fact that you were at that point on Championship Manager 0102, an absolute hero. It's my favourite game, but yeah, you're one of like go-to signings to bang goals. So like, why did you disappear to the K League?
I have no idea, if I'm being honest.
Was it advised by
which
someone
you
else that it would be a big move?
mistake?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I basically got to the end of the season. I'd say in and out. I'd still played enough football at Reading to have no reason to leave. And I got offered a deal from Pards. He was like, look, I basically had the choice of whatever deal I wanted, really, not money-wise, but length-wise. We sat down and he said, look, I know you're a bit worried about not playing and whatnot. He said, so if you want, we'll offer you a year. And at Christmas, if you don't feel you've played enough football, I'll give you a free transfer. So that was one option, which was more than fair. I probably could have gone to him and said, look, I want to stay. I'm more than happy. And they'd have gone, here's 3 years. I sort of could have done what I wanted, I think. And I just, throughout the back end of that season, I left my girlfriend. We'd split up. We had 2 kids. So I was sort of in a not great sort of headspace outside of football. So yeah, I had talks with Reading. I had talks with QPR at the time, and there was a few other clubs around the Championship, League One, that were more than interested. And then my agent rang me and said, we've got another 2 options. He said, we've got South Korea and we've got the MLS. So I was like, right, okay. So he said, South Korea want to fly you out. So they flew me and my agent out first class. We spent 5 days out there, looked around the training ground, watched the game, shown around everything, the stadium a lot. Sat down, agreed a deal. And it was funny, as we agreed the deal and we'd been there, we were obviously then going to fly home. And they were like, well, you're not going to sign the contract. Because we'd agreed it, they thought I was going to sign it. I said, well, no, I need to go home and speak to my family and think about it. I then flew home and then flew to DC and DC United. Trained with them. So I actually trained. So me and Stoichkov were up top, which was nice. So we trained and everything else.
Oh my word!
Yeah. So it would have been me and Aristo as the front 2, which was brilliant. I spent 5 days there. I loved it. Went out. The boys took me out. Felt more comfortable there, but. Korea was sort of appealing. It was different. And then come back from both. They offered me a deal as well, DC. And then I had all the other deals in England. And home life, like I say, wasn't great. And things were doing my head in a bit. And I just thought, why not? Said to my agent, let's just go for it. And that was basically how I come to the agreement, really, and the decision. I think if I wouldn't have had what was going on off the field, I don't think I'd have made the jump. I would have either signed for Reading or I'd have signed for a club in England. Because again, the MLS at the time wasn't what the MLS is now.
No.
I mean, Beckham didn't really kick it off till later on, and I'm not sure that I sort of had the branding to maybe do what he did. So that was the only reason. And I went there, and I think after 2 months, I realised that I'd made the wrong decision. I was missing my kids. They were only 2 and 4. So not seeing them, finding it hard to speak to them because of the time difference. Yeah. Again, because they're young, there was no FaceTime, and trying to speak to them on the phone when my little one could hardly speak, and I found that difficult speaking to my mum and sister, who used to cry nearly every day speaking to them. Football was okay. I'm not going to lie, the football wasn't too bad, but I just wasn't enjoying playing and stuff, and wasn't enjoying sitting in my room on my own. Well, I had a lovely apartment that gave me everything I wanted, but just spending loads of time on your own and not enjoying football, and then being away from family. So I just thought, I don't know what I've done. Missed English football and stuff.
If you took today's technology and put it in that time span with that opportunity, it would
I
have
think it would have helped. I think it would have definitely helped. I think probably I was 27, just about to turn 28. I think if you flip that, maybe I was 32, probably. Again, I think just the timing of it just was all wrong. It had nothing to do with the country, nothing to do with the football, the league, the facilities. I mean, the training ground was unbelievable. I had a hotel in, and you'd stay in the hotel when you got back late from a game, and everything they had was top drawer. The stadiums were ridiculous. So it's nothing to do with the league or the country. I think it was just the wrong time for me, the wrong place. I mean, if I was like I am now, I'm married, I've got a little one. If I went with a family and again with technology, I would have probably stayed there for 3 or 4 years, not a problem. But I just think that the time I went, it was the complete wrong thing for me. And then it affected me so much that I was sort of really struggling and thought, I've got to get home. And the season ended in December. So I come back in December and I had another year. I signed 18 months. And I just said to my agent, I can't go back. And we had until the end of January to basically try and sort something out. But I was contracted and they started to get funny. They wanted money from me. I had to give back signing on fee. And I just, whatever I wanted to do, I was willing to do to stay. Otherwise, it was getting very close. I didn't actually sign for QPR until the last day of the window. And
it really was fun then.
Yeah, I mean, I was having sit downs with my mum and my family, thinking I'm going to have to go back. I'm going to have to get on that plane and travel 12 hours, 13 hours on my own when I don't want to.
Yeah.
And luckily, Peterborough had come in for me, and then Ollie wanted me before I left. So the thing they had, there was the money they wanted. So I think it was about 90 to 100 grand in the end that they had to pay to get me out of my contract.
Amazing stuff. Then
a bit weird.
There's a couple. There's a couple of seasons at QPR. We've had the season of Swindon. Colchester then comes around.
Yeah,
that spell in the Championship. What a season!
What a season for you personally. I think I'd lost a couple of years from going away. I mean, I lost the year I went, and I think I lost the year coming back because I was still all over the place and hadn't really settled with my home. My sort of out off the field life still wasn't settled. So I think joining QPR, they didn't ever see the best of me at all. I signed 18 months there, and they were like a waste in a way because I was still mentally not right. So going Korea probably cost me 2 seasons in a silly way. And then Swindon come in for me because I was on a Bosman. QPR wasn't going to extend my contract, so it was a case of going back local. Really, obviously Swindon. My kids were growing up in Bristol, and sort of then they'd moved to Bath, so they were local. Swindon had a good squad. I think they'd not long been in the playoffs and stuff. So it seemed like a perfect move for me. And I signed, and it just didn't work. One of them things. The early part of the season was poor. The manager left, and I think Ify Nora took over, and I wasn't in around the squad. And then Parky rang and said, do you want to come on loan? So I was more than happy. I'd played with him at Reading, knew him very well. Went there on loan, banged goals in. Bearing in mind we're in the same league as Swindon. Colchester are flying at the top. Swindon are struggling, and Swindon called me back and said, "Look," and I was like, "I don't want to go back. I'm happy here, but I had to go back." Started to score for Swindon, and it went well, but we got relegated. And I was like, "Oh God, I signed a 2-year deal, and think we're gonna be in League Two." Colchester had gone up, and I was like, And my agent rang me and said, "You've got a relegation clause." I was like, "Eh?" I said, "I didn't." And he'd put a relegation clause in my contract, and I was like, You for real? And he was like, yeah. He said, I have no idea why. Swindon, for me, I would have thought they would go down. It was not something I'd never had in a contract before.
Yeah.
And we obviously went down, so I had the opportunity. I could either stay or leave on a free. Dennis Wise and Gus Poyet took over at Swindon, and they rang me and said, look, we want you to stay. So that was obviously a big thing. And Parky had rang me and said, we want you to come and sign a 2-year deal at Colchester. So it was a case of stay in League Two or go and play in the Championship. And I was like, no-brainer, really. And, you know, I was gutted because I'd like to work with Dennis and Gus, because they obviously took Swindon up and moved on and, you know, done well, to be fair, to pair of them. But I ended up signing for Colchester, and, I had the best probably season in my career, with my age, with where I'd gone in my career, with the team I was with that wasn't fancied, of winning the Golden Boot in the Championship. So it was, to me, it turned out to be the best move I made.
Yeah, you and Chris Alumo were just that partnership, the big man, little man partnership. What was it? Did your games just kind of suit each other? You know,
I think so. Yeah, well, we played together when I went on loan, so we all knew about each other, and it was not just me and him, it was the structure of the team. Parky knew what I was about. He'd obviously played with me for 3 years at Reading.
Yeah.
Knew how to get the best out of me. So the team was structured. We played 4-4-2, had wingers, 2 good centre midfielders, and we played to the strengths of the team. So me and Chris just worked off each other. I mean, I got 24 and I think he got 18. And this is a team that was, destined for relegation.
Yeah.
But we, like I say, the whole squad worked. We created a lot of chances, and I was in one of those seasons where most things I hit went in, and just managed to score freely. We scored freely as a team. I mean, we used to, the teams that were in the league, Leeds, Cardiff, Stoke, Sunderland. I mean, we beat them all, and it was a tough league. Crystal Palace, and we went down to the final 2 games, and we could have been in the playoffs. And I think we finished 10th, and it's the highest in Colchester's history. So, it was the achievement that we done as a team and as individuals was unbelievable. And like I say, it's probably the biggest achievement personally, and probably as a team. Even my promotions, Reading, we were expected to go up. QPR expected to go up. Colchester were expected to get relegated. And, we had, like I say, I think individually and as a team, we had the best seasons we've probably had in our careers.
So, with that season and how well you guys were doing, obviously from a Norwich fan's perspective, why move to Norwich then? What was it? Was it kind of like unfinished business that you wanted to come back, or why would you move away?
A bit of both. A bit of both. I felt at the age I was at, I never thought Colchester were going to have a challenge to get promoted.
Right.
Again, other players were leaving, so Chris left on a Bosman, and I knew he was leaving. So you sort of go, okay, how are you going to replace him? You're not going to go and spend millions because you're at Colchester. Hull had already bid for me, and I'd been to speak to Hull, agreed a deal. Norwich come in for me, and Charlton come in for me late on. I was under contract, so I was sort of stuck, really. Chris had obviously done one and left on a free. I'd come on a free, and then Colchester, £1 million. I'm like, or at first they said, you're not going. And I'm like, I was 31 and I've just had the best year of my career. I can go and earn more money because, you're at Colchester. If you move to Hull, you move to any of them, they're going to pay you more. Yeah. And I can move to a club that potentially might get me to the Premier League. And that was all I thought about. I'm 31. I was going to sign a 3-year deal with either of the clubs. In those 3 years, I might have a chance. And that was my biggest push for me, that I'm not going to get this move again. I'm not going to probably win the Golden Boot at Colchester this season if I stay. Yeah. If I go somewhere else, I'll have a chance, and I'll have a chance of achieving stuff. So I had spoke to the club and said, come on. And they were like, no, you're not going. So I put a transfer request in, the advice of my agent, which didn't go down well at all. And in hindsight, I probably didn't need to do it, because I think the money that the bids they got, they were never going to turn down in the end. To get close to £1 million for me, who cost you nothing, had been with you a year. Yeah, you were never going to turn down. But I was on holiday at the time when it was all going on and trying to speak, and wires were getting crossed, and I really should have waited till I come home, went and spoke to the chairman at Colchester, had a conversation, and I'm sure we'd have sorted it out.
Yeah.
But I put the transfer request in. As soon as you do that, it's on Sky Sports, and everyone, Colchester, then hate you and whatnot.
Isn't it?
Yeah, because they feel you're forcing it. And Hull, I'd agreed. I'd literally been up there, spoke to Phil Brown, agreed the deal. I was going to be their record signing at the time. Went back to Bristol. I was sat in a pub with my family, having dinner, celebrating. With my wife, my family, and as I'm at the table, the phone rings. My agent. I'm like, oh God, and he said, Norwich want to speak to you. And I was like, right, okay. In my head, since I'd left, I always felt if the opportunity come, I'd go back.
Yeah.
So even without even thinking about it, I'm like, right, I'm going to go and sign for Norwich.
Yeah.
My mum, my family going, well, maybe it's not right to go back. Maybe you've had your time. It didn't really pan out.
Yeah.
So, maybe just leave it as it is. And me being me, it was like, oh, it's Norwich. I can go back. I still knew all my friends. And I just thought, if I go there and the deal's anywhere near what I'm getting, I'm signing. Didn't even really take into account anything else. So I drove up, stayed the night at Andy Hughes' house. Went to the ground, spoke to them, deal was done. I actually got offered less per week than what I was getting at Hull. Cool. And I didn't even think about it. I didn't ring anyone. I didn't ring my missus. I didn't ring and say, what do you think? It was like Norwich was that big a pool.
Yeah.
I signed, and maybe in hindsight, again, I shouldn't have done. Maybe I should have just left it as it was, gone and signed for Hull. And the funny thing was, as I'm signing, Phil Parkinson's ringing my agent, who was at Charlton, saying we want to sign him. And I'd literally, as I'm signing, as I've lifted up, they're all smiling. I was like, hey. And then my agent told me that as I'm writing, Phil Parkinson had rang him. They'd missed out on a player and literally rang him that morning, and I'd just signed. Yeah. And again, Alan Pardew was a manager who I obviously worked with at Reading. Pardew was my ex-captain and manager at Colchester. So
the names you've worked with are just madness.
Yeah, so it was like, and they were all great, and I got on well with all of them. The Norwich thing was just the pull of it. I just it had me, and like I say, you look back, Hull got promoted that season. So you're like, oh God, what a decision. They went up, they beat Bristol City in the playoff final. Yeah. And I recommended Richard Garcia and Wayne Brown from Colchester to Phil Brown when we had our meeting and agreed the deal. He was asking me about other players. So I recommended both of them. They both go and play in the Premier League for the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And I recommended both of them. And like I say, when I walked away from Hull, I had such a good feeling, and I really enjoyed speaking with Phil Brown. And if it wasn't for Norwich, I would have signed for Hull. I was done. And like I say, stupidly, the pull of Norwich, I'd been at the club since I was 14, and hadn't felt that I had a really dominant first team career, and just felt I've gone to all these clubs and done what I've done, come back. Norwich had a good team as well, and I felt that they could have achieved something. But then I signed, and Yusuf Safri and Dixon Atu both leave.
Yeah, two of our massive players.
Two of our best players.
They were brilliant.
So you sign, and then you think, and we ended up struggling for 3 years, really. And like I say, Hull go up and play in the Premier League.
There you go. So there you go. That's an exclusive for you, Adam. Everyone thinks it's Dean Windass that got Hull promoted, when actually it was Jamie Cureton.
By me not signing, that's what out there. I'm telling you.
So you have obviously your top goal scorer for Norwich in that first season, but then things quickly. Yeah. I mean, the following season, without a doubt, my worst season as a football fan. That season.
It might be one of my worst as a player as well.
I was there on that final day of the season against Charlton. It's still painful to.
I was sub that day. It didn't come on. My career basically follows a trend. I even from being there as a youngster, I just have manager after manager. I think I had 5 when I was there as a kid, and I think I had 4 when I was there when I went back. So one manager, Peter Grant, buys me, pays nearly £1 million. I think within 10 games he walked out.
Yeah, you go.
Glad Glenn Roeder comes in, and you never know whether they like you, don't like you. But at least if a manager's gone and spent big money on you, he's going to fight for you. He's going to persist with you and stuff.
Yeah.
He then leaves, walks out because he didn't feel he was doing the right job. And, I was gutted. I got on really well with him. And you think, oh, geez, Glenn Roeder come in. I played a lot under him, didn't get on with him.
I was just going to ask, what was it like working under him? Because
I was going to ask the same question.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it. He was very rude, very disrespectful to everyone, not just players, to everyone. And, I don't know what he's like as a person outside of football. And I've only worked with him that once, but, my one sort of feeling from him that was what he was like. And I don't know why. I don't know if he was like it before or he had been after. But with us as a group of players, very, very disrespectful. It felt like he'd worked with Premier League clubs, come to us, and he was doing us a favour, and we were half beneath him. And I was an experienced player at that point, and I wouldn't have it. I had many a row with him and told him what I felt. I defended other players when he spoke to them, and I didn't enjoy that period underneath him. And in the end, the following season, I went out on loan to Barnsley. Because I wasn't in his team, he was bringing in loan player after loan player. I mean, we could have fielded an 11 with loan players, I think.
It got ridiculous at one point. It was stupid. I mean, even loaning in somebody, the famous song about Alan Lee, he hates Ipswich and all that kind of stuff like that. But then again, like you said, you've got you sitting on the bench there. And there's absolutely no need to have that. He just seemed,
it was like he didn't like anyone who was there, so he just bring in a million loans. And like I say, some of them were okay. We had a few youngsters that come in and did well, but it just seemed like a conveyor belt of players. And the best thing for me was and it was stupid really, because I went on loan to Barnsley, who were fighting relegation with Norwich, and I was helping them stay up. And in the end, Barnsley stay up and we go down. And
that's just Roeder.
It wasn't until Roeder got sacked, the day he got sacked, Gunny took over and he called me back instantly.
Yeah.
And I come back, scored on my return against Barnsley. And then, again, lack of form. I don't think we had the best squad, if I'm being honest. We were depleted. We had, like I say, we didn't have a squad that you could recognise.
No.
And, I fell in and out of the team. Lack of form and maybe just lack of not playing enough and not being good enough as a team. And then, went down to the last game. I was sub and we got battered. I sat there and we got battered, and rightly so. I think we weren't good enough to stay up. And then we have the opening day of the following season getting beat 7-1.
Yeah.
I was sat on the bench. I was sat on the bench for that one, so I'm not taking any blame for both of those results.
But then with Lambert coming in, that was the best period for the club. That was ultimately what transformed everything. So it's one painful memory makes a wonderful season. So can't complain in that respect. But
no, and I think since those moments, the club's sort of gone in the direction it should do, and it's in a position where when I first went to Norwich, we were obviously one of the top teams in the league, but you recognise them as a Premier League team, and I think now they're probably going to be that yo-yo team for a bit until they maybe start to spend a bit more and establish themselves. But at least they're in the right direction, and they're in a healthy place, and they're in a healthy place, and the club's in a good place at the moment. So.
And then we kind of go. You have a couple of loan spells. There's then move to Exeter, where you have another good. You have a good season, 17 goals there. You've got your move to Orient, and then back to Exeter on loan, and then you're back to Exeter. What kind of happened in that little period?
So I basically left Norwich, and I didn't have a club. I was just about to turn 35. Obviously, the season ending at Norwich wasn't great. I'd been on loan at Shrewsbury and didn't score. So it was like, right, is people thinking this is the end? So Andy Tilson was the assistant at Exeter. I'd played with him at Bristol Rovers, so I knew him well. He invited me down for a trial. Bearing in mind, I've got a house in Norwich. My wife's from Essex, and I'm going down to Exeter. So I'm like, right, okay, we'll see what happens. So I went on trial. Did really well, and they offered me a 6-month contract. And it was the first time I'd been in a position where I had nothing, so to speak. And I really had to earn what I'd had. All the other moves, I'd been a free agent, but I had offers and I just had to make decisions.
Yeah.
Where this was, I've got to go and earn a contract now. I'd hit 35 and my fallout, I had a little fallout with Lambert and sort of had a little reality check of if I want to keep playing, you know, we have to really knuckle down and do what we can. And if it means I've got to move around the country, then I want to still be a professional. So I have to. So I went down there, earned a 6-month contract, lived at my mum's. My missus moved in with her dad in Essex, and we rented out our house. So we were obviously living apart, basically. And I managed to do really well. Come the Christmas time, they offered me another 6 months. Signed that. Ended up scoring 20 goals in all competitions, flying. And then it was, what do you do? They offered me a new deal. But Orient had come in for me, and they'd been in the same league and finished one place above us. I could move back home or move back to Essex and live with my missus. So we basically, I had Bristol Rovers as well, who I could have gone back to. And I nearly did, but they were messing around on a deal. And I was like, you know, and the pull of going back, I'd have had to still stay at my mum's house another year away from my missus. And I just thought football means a lot, but you obviously have to look at family sort of life as well. So I signed for Orient. So I signed for Orient. Me and my missus rented a place and loved the club, but I just lack of form. I got injured, didn't perform, scored 1 goal, and fell out of the team. And I was like, oh, here we go. And then basically Exeter come in for me on loan, and I thought, well, it's probably best to go out on loan, at least play and show people I'm still able to do a job. So I went back there and did okay. They then offered me another deal, and I'm like, I haven't got nothing else. I haven't had the best season. So me and my missus have got married that summer as well. And I basically got married and moved back in with my mum, and my missus stayed back in Essex. So I spent that year
back in the same situation.
But married this time. Scored 20 goals again, I think, or 20 goals again in all competitions. And they didn't offer me a deal. And I was like, hey. So I assumed I was going to carry on. Obviously, I was getting on in age, but I played nearly the whole season. I think I was in team of the year. Scored 20 goals, and Tiz was like, you know, I'm going to go with another player. I'm not going to offer you a contract. So Cheltenham come in for me, which was fine, but I had to still stay at my mum's again. Similar thing, I was going obviously back and forth home, but so we did that, and that was okay. Didn't work out brilliant, but again did okay. And then Dagenham offered me a trial at the end of my season with Cheltenham. Cheltenham offered me a deal, but it wasn't until later on. They'd said they weren't. I then trained with them just to keep fit and was sharp, and there was players going, oh, is he not staying? So they then offered me a deal, but at that point I'd been on trial at Dagenham and earned a contract at Dagenham, which meant I could move back home. Me and the missus me and the missus had a house in Suffolk, so we'd been renting out, so we moved back in, and then I spent 2 years at Dagenham, scored 20 goals in my first year, which earned me another year. And then going into my 41st year, basically finished with Dagenham in the Football League.
And then we've then got a whole host of moves into non-league football. It
was a big eye opener dropping into non-league, I have to say.
What has kept you wanting to play football continuously at a level which is still a very physical, very demanding? What has kept you going?
Just the love of the game. This is simple as that. Simple as that. Just thoroughly enjoy playing football. You know, I still look at it as I did when I was a kid, I suppose. That's the easiest way to explain it. That it doesn't matter whether I play in front of 60,000 or 60 people.
That's amazing.
It's still, you know, scoring for whether it's Farnborough, whether it's Stortford, Hornchurch. The buzz obviously it's different, but it's still the same. You know, I still thoroughly enjoy walking out on a Saturday, thinking there's 3 points at stake and a chance for me to score goals. And I sort of try and take away all the aesthetics around it. So the ground, change rooms are not great, showers might be cold, and just look, right, there's a football pitch, there's 2 goals, we have to play football, I have to score on one end and we have to keep them at the other, and try and keep it very simple. And that was why I started playing football. So I basically tried to carry that on. And if I never made it as a pro, I would have played with my friends. I'd have played Sunday football. I'd have played pub league. I'd have played as high as I could if I wasn't ever a pro. So for me to turn up and play is a privilege for me in a silly way, that I'm honoured I can still play the game. So I think that's what's kept me going. I think that's what's allowed me to go to certain grounds, play in certain places, and I get friends that go to me, "Are you not bored?" And I'm like, "No, I love it." And how can you go and play there when you've played here? And I think because I just look at it as just football, nothing else, that's why I keep playing, basically. You know?
Is it still as important to you, even and the non-league pyramid's huge, like, is it still important to you to play at the highest level possible? Because through all the discussions, it's been like the one thing that's really stood out to me is how keen you were to try and elevate the level of football that you were playing at and getting getting the best out of yourself. Do you still hold that true, or is it now about getting the games in and keeping the appearances up? Because you've passed 1,000 appearances now.
Yeah, no, still, again, very proud and privileged to play higher. So I would always, if a Conference South club come in for me, or Conference club, I would generally think, I would do that, even if I wasn't playing as much.
Yeah,
the prestige for me at my age to play as high as possible is huge. So I'm really proud that I'm still playing at a level that's a couple of steps below conference. You know, for me, I'm nearly 45. I could quite easily drop down. I've had offers from teams lower down, more money.
Yeah. But
I'm like, well, I'm still quite proud to play at, I think it's a decent level. It's young, they're fit, there's academies, money's good, the crowds are good, you've got ambition. I could have gone and dropped down probably 3 seasons ago in non-league and earned more money, scored more goals, but I'm playing a few steps below. So for the highest, I've always looked and always chose clubs sometimes on the stadia, the division, you know, not took the easy option and thought I'll get more money here, but it's not as good a club as this. I've always liked to play for good clubs and as high as possible. So I still think I could play higher. You know, that's my opinion, and I think I could. You know, I've scored 20 plus goals last year and won the Golden Boot, and was on 21 goals this year. Yeah. So I'm at a good standard. So I could go and do that in the Conference South. Yeah. I think I could go into the National League, maybe not play every week, but I could still go and score goals. You know, you get players from the level I'm at now going into league football, but I score more goals. But because I'm 44, a league club isn't going to take me, but they're going to take a young guy who might have scored 10. We're still playing at the same level. So, you know, I would always try to pride myself on playing as high as possible for as long as possible. And I think as long as I do that, I think, well, if I can drop down as we go, I've got no problem. And if that's the level I'm at, then brilliant. But I wouldn't just drop down for an easy life, more money. I would always try and stay. I mean, even this year, I've had clubs ring me in the league below already. But, you know, I'm hoping that I stay at Hornchurch. You know, I loved it. You know, there's a good club. I think if they keep the group, they've got a chance of promotion. So for me to play in a team that's got a chance of promotion at this level would mean a lot more than me earning an extra £50, £100 or £200 a week. And that's what I would like to do. But I always try and gauge it on the teams, obviously the divisions, especially in non-league, of, you know, what suits. So there might be a team that are lower down, but got a chance to get promotion as a project, and you think, well, that might be good to be a part of. I wouldn't just drop down for any team. It would have to be a good football decision and not just money. And I've learned that in non-league, that I didn't understand and didn't know the money that gets paid, you know, what can be thrown around. I was shocked when I first dropped into it. So it would have been, this is my 4th season. So when I dropped into it, and my first non-league club was Farnborough, and you start to speak to the boys, and I didn't really pay loads of attention to non-league, apart from the conference. I didn't pay loads of attention to what goes on below that. I had no problem playing in it, and I always said to myself, as long as I can keep playing, I'll keep dropping down. Never had any problems, but I obviously didn't know a lot about it. And then I start to hear when I'm playing in it of what people, and I'm like, I was earning less playing for Dagenham and less playing for Exeter than what players are earning in non-league. And I'm talking like Conference South and down. And I'm like, hey? they were telling me, and I found it unbelievable. And I'm thinking, I've been playing in the Football League, training every day, and getting paid probably half of what some of these players get paid training twice a week.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand. I knew conference was the paid money, but I didn't understand below that what some of the clubs can pay and how it gets paid, and the 7-day notice. Like, all of that was baffling to me until I was obviously starting to get into it. And I thought, wow, I mean, I could have dropped down 6 years ago and earned a fortune. But yeah, it was like a big eye opener. But the club, I mean, I went to Farnborough, my first club. I was training with Colchester. And one of my good friends, Terrell Forbes, I seen he put something on his Snapchat. He was playing a game, and I seen the stadium behind him. I messaged him, "Where are you?" He said, "Oh, I'm playing for Farnborough." So I sort of had a little look around, and he went, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm training at Colchester. I'm trying to get back into the league. I didn't want to drop down. I didn't feel I was ready."
Yeah.
And he spoke to the manager, Spencer Day, and he said, "Well, tell him to come down. He can sign on contract just to keep fit, and you can obviously." Again, I didn't have a clue. Signed on contract, but you can then leave.
Yeah.
So I went and signed for them, and I loved every minute of it. My first dipped my toe in non-league, and Dennis Ollie was there, Terrell Forbes. I'd played with both of them. The real good setup. Stadium was, I was like, blimey, stadium was lovely. Pitch was good, and it was just a big eye opener, and I really enjoyed it. And I was there for a while, and then Eastleigh coming for me, who were obviously full time, and in the National League. So again, I only probably went up another £100 in money to go full time, but because it was Eastleigh, because it was conference, I was like, I'm still able to play at that level, so I should. And it cost me more. I used to have to travel so far. Where Farnborough, I was turning up for a game and that was it. Eastleigh, I was there full time. I was living in a house, traveling back and forth from Suffolk down to there. But it was the prestige of playing at that level again. And I'd only just dropped out of playing in the Football League, so I've always like, well, how can I not be playing in the conference? This is mental. So I signed for them, and then went to Christmas time. Martin Allen come in, and I was on a non-contract, and I was told that I wasn't wanted. So I was basically had to pack my stuff up and drive up the motorway. And I had Chelmsford and St Albans, and again, and really didn't know a lot about both clubs, and I got offered the same money at St Albans as what I was on at Eastleigh, and that was to train twice a week. And Chelmsford, I was closer to me, but I'd spoken to a few people, and St Albans were flying. I think they were second, and I signed for them. And then my non-league sort of career, as I went back to Farnborough the following year on loan, we won promotion. Signed for Farnborough again because I enjoyed it so much, and then went to Stortford.
Stortford, you had a stunning time at, like, goals to games. Obviously, you did a bit of management there as well, didn't you? Yeah,
so I did player manager the last sort of 2 years there, and sort of joint manager with Steve Smith, the owner. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Scored a lot of goals. We missed out on the playoffs last year. This year we were struggling a bit, but it gave me a little insight into managing as well, which was good. Which I enjoyed.
Do you think you basically?
I possibly, yeah. I mean, I've been offered bits and bobs already about from managing and player managing. So it'd be, do I carry on playing? And it was quite nice to go to Hornchurch and just play and not worry about everything else. I was literally worrying about meeting times, kit, trying to play. It was tough, but I enjoyed it. Where it was quite refreshing to go to Hornchurch and the gaffer took everything, and I could just turn up and worry about playing, scoring goals. That was quite nice. I think now I've been in non-league a little while and I understand the ins and outs and players and stuff. Then I think the management side in non-league I'd definitely like to pursue, because that you can work for some really good clubs. Again, if you get the right budget, you bring the right players in, you've got every chance of doing something. I do enjoy that.
Have you done any of your kind of coaching badges at this point?
I've done up to my B, and then I was about to get onto my UEFA A. So I worked at Arsenal for 2 years in their academy. So you have to obviously have certain sort of stuff to do that. So I've done my B and was about to start my A, and then just didn't have the time. So so I got enough of qualification to go into sort of working within the league if I obviously need to. So have enjoyed non-league. I have to say, thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. And I think what's helped is it's sort of winding me off of playing. So rather than be a pro and just stop and that's it, I think this has sort of helped with me of coming to the end of playing, whenever obviously that is.
In the time that you've been in non-league, you've already established yourself as a bit of a legend of it anyway. Well appreciated in non-league circles, and obviously banging goals in. Fans absolutely love that, and it's a different experience at non-league. Like being able to meet the people that are cheering you on afterwards, and really have a drink with them and stuff. But that's what it's all about, really, isn't it?
Is it you would I found that actively talk to, if you were talking to somebody who you have played with or somebody who's kind of approaching the end of it, is it something you would actively say, drop down and still enjoy your football?
Yeah, I would, definitely. I mean, but again, you've got to be a certain, I think, mindset to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see a lot of them, Conference South and Conference have a lot. And then obviously at our league, there's a few. But again, it's down to your own preference. Sometimes some players are too proud, feel it's a bit beneath them. Do they really need to keep playing? And what are their reasons for it? So you've either got to really love it or you've got to need the money, I suppose, to drop down. Yeah, I love it. I really, really enjoy it. So I would say to them, if you've got that passion to keep playing, don't be afraid to drop down. Because the levels aren't as bad as you think. The football's decent. The level I play at, there's some good players in our level. It's not like a league where you look at overweight and slow and people going to the pub. I mean, people are fit. A lot of academy players have dropped down. I mean, you look at the likes of Worthing, Lewis last year, Tunbridge Angels. They play good football. It's not just get it and smash it to a big man and big lump up top. A lot of these boys split in. They try and play the right way, and there's some exciting talent that have maybe not made it as a pro and dropped out of an academy, and they go to these clubs now, and they're trying to build up. So the levels actually aren't bad. You get some good crowds, and it's fun. I find it fun. It took me back to, I used to watch my dad play, and he played for Clevedon, Taunton, Western, and it took me back to then. Your crowd are close. Like you say, you go in the bar after. There's always food laid on. Every club you go to, food laid on from the club. Just sit down, meet the fans. Boys are all having a pint, and you have a bit of fun, and you get to know the community sort of thing. So when I was at Stortford and managing, you end up getting to know them all, and you feel very connected to it. So for me, it is really, really good. And like I say, I have not got a bad word to say about it. There are people within it, don't get me wrong, that don't always do the right things and can treat people a bit different. And probably what I found strange is the ins and outs, that you can get rid of teams and you get rid of players quite quick because of non-contract. And that's one thing that I don't enjoy. If you're giving someone a chance, then give them a chance. But you can have that, which is one of the sort of bad things, which isn't too bad. But other than that, I mean, I've had a great 4 years so far, 100%. And for me to be now welcomed, I suppose, into non-league and people to respect what I'm doing, and I get treated as someone half normal, because you drop in from playing pro, people think you're the big I am and da-da-da. And I just treated it as football, and I think people have respected that. And I walk in the change rooms and there's no airs and graces with me. I fit in, and we're all footballers, and it doesn't matter what I've done. I'm here with you. This is the level I'm playing at. So I think people have respected that, and I think that's probably why, even when I've gone to away grounds, you get like nice comments. People respect what you're doing. They can see what you're doing, running around. You still can do a job, and I think you get. I've had a lot of respect from a lot of away fans, and I've been welcomed in, and it's been brilliant.
Yeah. Fantastic. I'm very conscious of your time, so I want to jump on to some Twitter questions, if that's all right.
Certainly.
I'm gonna start off with Nick Breverton. He said, I wondered how the move to career came about, and wondered what it was like, considering he said it was a mistake. Obviously, we've talked about that. On the flip side, what move was the one that almost came through but didn't, or his favourite club? I mean, to be honest, you've talked about a lot on there. I suppose probably the Hull's probably the one that kind of stands out from our conversations.
Yeah, I think that was probably the club that was the move that probably didn't come off, which it maybe should have done. I was always linked with loads of clubs. Hibs, I think, from the moment I mentioned Bristol, I've had people mention me that I was linked with them nearly every season. I have no idea why. Not a clue. I was always linked to go back to Bristol. So it's funny, yeah. You get linked with moves everywhere. I did. My name was sort of always linked to certain teams. But yeah, I mean, the whole one would probably be something you think, maybe I should have done. But again, maybe I would have cost them promotion. So maybe they're probably better off I didn't go to.
Maybe that Dean Windass goal at Wembley wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, so there you go. So I think I think Fraser Campbell went there on loan for Man United. So maybe if I'd have signed, they wouldn't have got him. So again, there's always a silver lining. So like I say, Hull are probably fairly pleased with that.
That's it. Chris White, who was our guest last night, Adam, he said, do you have any match day rituals or superstitions?
Yeah, I go out the tunnel last. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why.
Should be not a goalkeeper.
Yeah, no. But I've always sort of quite laid back in the change rooms. I take my time. I'm always normally the last one at the end of a game as well. My family used to go mad at me. They'd be waiting. I'd be the last player to walk in the players' lounge or something. My missus used to go mental. But I think it's sort of become a habit. I was quite laid back in the change rooms and took my time. So I always went out last. And I think I just got used to it. And then I've been to clubs where someone else had wanted to be last and you'd be sort of haggling and go to the toilet as the ref blows the whistle to try and be last and stuff.
Yeah, on your bike, son. Yeah.
But as I've got older, I've sort of if you go to a club and you're new and someone does it, I'd just go out second from last. It wasn't major. And I tended to put my left stuff on first, my left boot and left pad. Again, don't know why. I'm just a creature of habit. So that's what I do. And if I don't do it, I think, so I just, they're the only two, but nothing too crazy.
Fantastic. Ben Durham asks, can you ask him when he was in his peak at Colchester, that season they pushed for the playoffs, is there any truth in the rumours that you almost joined Ipswich? If so, how close was this to happening?
No, there wasn't. I think there might have been some sort of interest again, but you hear so much as a player, rumours from agents and stuff. But no, I didn't sit down and have any conversations with him. No.
Fantastic. We've got Bill Case. He said he spent a few seasons banging in goals for Farnborough. Would have loved to have seen him in a Slough Town shirt. Was he ever approached by them? No.
Again, I played against them a few times for Farnborough. And I spoke to the manager a couple of times, but never on joining them, no.
No. Okay. We've got Michael Collins. He said, what's the secret for keeping so fit? What sort of food do you eat, and why do you think you've kept the passion for the game so strong while others have given up? Well, we talked about why you do it, but any secrets to keeping fit, and what sort of foods do you eat, or is it?
Yeah, nothing like crazy. I eat a healthy diet. I don't drink loads of alcohol. I don't really go out and socialise loads anymore. So sleep well. Like I say, mine's more sort of everything's preparing and then everything's recovering. And that's sort of how I live my life a bit. And anything in the off season, I just try and just be sensible. I tend to work even throughout the off season. I tend to always trying to keep fit and do stuff. But in a season, it's right. I'm preparing to play. So do everything right to prepare. And as soon as the game finishes, I do everything right to recover. So I try, like I said previous, I was a terrible pro. I'm probably the ultimate pro now. Everything I do now is what you would do as a professional.
Yeah.
And I now doing it in non-league. So it's a bit crazy.
My father has actually got involved. Steve, he said, what was your favourite Norwich City goal? And what made him dye his hair green in the local derby? Obviously, you scored in that game.
My dad asked the same question. He said that's what I should ask.
So the green hair is Darren Eadie's fault. So we all had skinheads, and Darren said he wouldn't cut his hair, but he would dye it green. So he bought a can of spray from the joke shop. We got to Portman Road, and he refused to do it. And me being me, as I spoke about what I was like, I said, not a problem, I'll do it. So Andy Johnson and Carl Bradshaw sprayed my hair.
Did you get a bit of a kick in from management for doing something like that before?
No, Gary Megson was okay. He sort of knew what was going on because we'd all had skin-ins. I think the game was quite end of season-ish. I think no one was going up or down, and we didn't take it lightly. But it was more like, okay, if we're still here to win, but it was a bit more jovial. So a lot of the lads, if you notice in the game, I think all had skinheads, which was from previous. And Darren had said that he would do it. We'd asked Gary Megson, he was like, yeah. And then we literally were in the change rooms and he bottled out of it. And they were like standing there. And I went, yeah, go on. And it wasn't until I really walked out and I've got a picture of how bright green it was. But because we didn't have a hairdryer, because it had to be dried, it's like your joke spray sort of hair. Yeah. It obviously, by the time I come on, it had ran and it was all quite patchy. It wasn't as luminous. We needed to dry it before, so it would have stayed luminous. So that's basically the green hair. Favourite goal, you're not going to like this, but it's probably my couple of my Ipswich ones, really. So my first, my one I scored in the Premier League against them, where I went round the goalie. That's one of my favourites. And then the equaliser I got in the 2-2, where I lobbed.
Oh yes. Who flicked it on? Was it John Hartson?
John Hartson.
Big John Hartson. He flicked it on, and he lobbed it. Oh. So I still remember that goal.
And it's not just because they're Ipswich. They're actually, for me, like technically decent goals. So they're in local derbies. I think I scored 3 and 4. So I wasn't too bad.
That was the derby in which Ipswich had just been taken over by.
We were 2-0 down as well, I think.
Yeah, and they were like waving their £20 notes in the air. It was brilliant. And then, as you said, 2-0 down. You come back.
Yeah, scored one later.
What a moment! I've got Norwich City Central. Said favourite moment of your Norwich City career. Would it be one of those two, or is there a particular moment? Maybe the first.
The first goal was always up there, but I think the moment would be the Ipswich game in the Premier League, because I'd sort of now started to get a few games. I scored. I got man of the match on Sky, and I think as a moment, that's probably sort of the biggest one. Yeah.
Yeah. Final 2 questions. We've got Joel Windsor. He said, when you finish at your current club, there is a place at official Coddenham Athletic. You playing the SIL for you.
Okay.
So that's the first part.
What step's that? Because I've done 1 to 9.
That they are. They're
non-league. They're
step 8.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I need a 10. I've done 1 to 9, I think. So I need a 10 to.
Okay.
I think Stowe have got their B team that's a 10.
No, don't you dare, Adam. Don't you dare.
Yeah.
So I think I've scored from 1 to 10, or 1 to 8, or 1 to 9. I think it's 1 to 9. I'm not sure. I need to keep ticking them down so no one can catch me. So I think I think it's 9 and 10. I might need to do, or just 10.
Okay. Well, I'll let some of the SIL teams know, and we'll see what we can try and sort out.
Well, I live in Suffolk, so it's not
anywhere around
ideal. There you go. So his question is, what did Dion Dublin say to you when you equalised the late equaliser at Leo Wodra and you returned? It looked as if he told you off. What was this all about? I remember the picture.
So I'd obviously left to go to Norwich in the first game back at Lair Road that season. After leaving, it was on Sky, so I was getting abused. And this is what I'm saying. We've handed in the transfer request, and then leaving, no matter if Norwich would have paid 10 million for me, Colchester had a ill feel about me. So we went back. I got abused for 90 minutes. We were losing 1-0. I did claim the goal, but I didn't touch it. It was an own goal in the end. And that was sort of me celebrating and holding my badge. But it was only because of the abuse I got. And I think he was just pulling me away and telling me to shut up and we'll just get on with the game. So it was really being told off. Definitely, they're not wrong.
And the final question we've got is from Ray Hicks. He says, "Where will you finally settle down?"
What, as in what, football? Or?
Yeah, I guess he means football-wise.
I hope so, because my wife won't be too pleased with that.
Do you have?
I thought that I was going to stay at Stortford. So I thought that I would stay at Stortford, retire, manage, and then see where we go. Yeah. Obviously now I've left them and gone home church. I don't know. So ideally, I'd love to stay at Hornchurch and carry on, but they might turn around in all this what's going on and say there's nothing for me.
Yeah.
And then it would be a case of weighing up options, what I've got, and going from there. I couldn't tell you if it's going to be my last year. I tend to go year by year, so I have no idea. Someone might offer me a role this summer, which I have to retire because it's a job that I can't play. And, so I've always said that it'll either be my legs that give up on me, or I get offered a role full time doing something that I love. That be the two reasons I stop playing. So, I'm after what I've done this year, I'm more confident that I'll play next year. But someone might offer me a manager's role where I can't play, or someone might offer me a role in media or within a football club where I have to retire. So it's difficult for me to say. Like I said, I was very settled at Stortford, and things change, and that's football. So, I'll play next year, hopefully. And at the moment, I'm hoping it's Hornchurch, but like I say, it could be anywhere at the moment, because until we know what's going on, probably some clubs won't act, and others will, I suppose. And like I say, I've had options already, and I'd like to wait until I speak to Hornchurch, until it starts to settle down, and you know what clubs are doing before I make a decision.
Definitely. Well, absolute pleasure, Jamie.
No problem.
Seriously, Adam, amazing work getting Jamie on. Thank you.
That's okay. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's good.
It's been absolutely amazing. Like, it's exactly like, I know we've been going for about 2 hours, but I feel like we've almost made a biography of what you've done in the right way. And
I had a feeling an hour might not be long enough.
Well, you know what? When we started going through some of the clubs, and I just thought the amount of detail you're going into, this is absolutely amazing. And
you should have told me to shut up, and I'd have cut it short.
That's not what we wanted.
I tend to once I get asked questions, I can just talk. So my missus tells me I talk too much, but
she'll probably you didn't talk enough tonight because you've been out of her hair.
Yeah, she's probably buzzing upstairs. I'll probably go up there. She'll be in bed now. Brilliant. She'll be moaning at me. She's probably watching what she wants now and stuff. So she's been all right.
So no, honestly, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Obviously, we don't know what's going on with everything at the moment. So I hope that you can potentially sort out something out for next season. I think everyone in non-football will want you to continue to play, because it's such an amazing story that you are.
I'd hate for something like this to happen and I end up retiring because of something out of my control. So I think whatever happens, I'll play next year, I would imagine. And like I say, we'll see each year how it goes. But, for me, non-league's been brilliant. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm glad that people enjoy, I suppose, watching me play. So it's been good. So hopefully we'll be able to give them another year.
Yeah, and any SIL teams that want Jamie involved in their setup, just give me a holler, and I'll see what we can try and sort out. We'll see what we can do. Let's get step 9 and step 10 ticked off, shall we?
There you go.
There we go. If you guys have enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. All that kind of review stuff on, I don't know, Adam, all that kind of stuff, don't you? What do the people do on the podcast platforms? The 5-star reviews? I don't know.
You can rate it all on all the podcast platforms now. Give us 5 stars, but more importantly, subscribe so you know when the next episode comes out straight away, as long as I remember to upload them properly.
Yes, I can reveal now that Thursday's guest is Paul Hayes.
Oh, okay.
Ex Norwich Scunthorpe player. Very excited to have him on. So if you've got any questions for Paul, let us know down in the comments section. I'll be posting more about that kind of stuff on Twitter throughout the week. But as I said, if you've enjoyed this one, hit the thumbs up, leave us a comment, and as Adam said, subscribe to the channel. And until we see each other next time, as always, adios.